How you doing? This is Lance Henriksen, and you're listening to withoutyourhead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by the returning Richard Stanley, director of The Color Out of Space, which is in theaters January 24th, and it's very cool to have you back.
Damn fine to be here, sir.
Yes. So what was it about this specific Lovecraft story that you thought would make a good movie?
Well, Color Out of Space was H.P. Lovecraft's favorite of his own tales, and it felt like it was at least achievable on a lowish budget, because it's like set on one farm and concerns one family, and it meant we didn't have to go to Antarctica or go to another planet or the bottom of the Mariana Trench. So it felt like it was within range. Maybe it was like the low-hanging fruit of the Lovecraft canon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always hard to go to another planet on a budget. So
yeah, we do in Color Out of Space. I'm not wanting to give away too much.
What is it about Lovecraft in general that, connects you to his work?
Well, I think Lovecraft's day is about to come, in that for some reason, almost 100 years after his death, his work seems to have permeated every aspect of human culture. Like people in Russia, Japan, the Pyrenees, Africa can all identify Cthulhu instantly. It's spread like a weird religious meme across the planet. It's something that is kind of unique in our culture. From the point of view, we're just getting used to things like the Marvel-verse and the idea of a shared creative universe. But these are all corporate structures, and the Cthulhu mythos is spread without any corporate backers. It's somehow spread spontaneously. I think it's about time that the old ones were given concrete form and got onto our television sets.
Yeah. Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think it? Because I agree, it's like it's become. When I was a kid, like people knew about it, but I was like with weird crowd playing D&D and stuff. But why do you think it is like more mainstream? Not necessarily mainstream, but more people know about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd hate to say that there's something to it after all, but I get the impression that if humanity survives into another century or another 2 or 3 centuries, that the Cthulhu mythos and the Lovecraft universe will remain with us. I think it's going to last longer than a lot of other man-made religions, like say Scientology.
Mm-hmm. So, was it always your thought when you did this movie to set it in modern day?
I wanted to be as faithful as possible to the spirit of the original story, but I also wanted to somehow return it to its roots, and the best way of doing that was to move it to the present or the near future, just because I didn't want the Lovecraftian threat, the old ones, the ultra-dimensional force, to in any ways be quaint or old-fashioned, let alone cute. I think generations of role-playing gamers and the plush Cthulhu toys have made me wary of keeping it in its period context. I wanted it to be something that was cogent again and a clear and present threat to us now and to generations to come. So I guess in the quest to make Cthulhu great again and to empower the old ones, I had to move it into the present.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because I know exactly what you mean, because when you watch a lot of that stuff, it's set in a certain time, and it adds kind of this weird charm to it, but it's more about the period than about like the actual horror of the stories.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I felt that we needed to go for the cosmic horror and to look extinction in the face.
Mm-hmm. So getting Nicolas Cage involved, what was that process like?
Well, it came about thanks to Josh Waller, the producer for Spectrovision, who found out that Nick was a big Lovecraft fan while in conversation with him on the set of Mandy. And the fact that Nick was a Lovecraft fan and I happened to have a Lovecraft script flying around meant that, Josh was able to put 2 and 2 together. Nick read the script, and I got a phone call from him at 3 in the morning here in France, and sounded far-fetched, like some guy claiming to be Nick Cage in a bar in Las Vegas, claiming that he wants to be in my movie. And I remained skeptical for quite a long time. Eventually, Josh had to drive up with one of the producers from Portugal and physically knock on my door and told me to get in the car before I really believed they were making the movie.
Yeah. When you're directing Nicolas Cage, like, what's that like? Because I assume like a lot of stuff would be his idea how to play the character. And does he take like direction well, or do you even need to direct him?
Actually, directing Nick was kind of a pure joy, and he really restored my faith in the entire process. I mean, I think we're very much in tune to start off with, from the point of view that I tend to approach everything that I do as a kind of deadpan, apocalyptic black comedy. And Nick has, I think, a very finely developed sense of comic timing, even in scenes that don't outwardly appear to be comedic. So I do think that if Nick continues down the path he's on, and doing these kind of character turns, that he has within him the ability to be like the next Vincent Price. There's something...
These last few years, like, I mean, he's always been a huge actor, but the last few years he's really doing great in like the horror genre and these weird movies that really, speak to me as a big horror movie guy.
Yeah, and Nick's a genre fan, and I think he really has the chops for it. I find him incredibly entertaining to watch. He'd bring a number of different choices, and beforehand, weeks before we shot, he would highlighted areas in the script that we felt we could really run with in terms of improvisation, like the tomato scene in the kitchen, or Nick rigging out in the car. Mm-hmm. So we found that although a lot of these things appeared like spontaneous eruptions of insanity in the film itself, they were usually things that we'd clearly that we knew were going to happen. But certainly Nick's energy as well means that the entire cast and the crew are a lot more on form. As a result, we usually got most of his scenes in literally 2 or 3 takes. Mm-hmm. So, working with Nick was a pure joy. Yeah.
Now, when I read the original story, they talk about the actual color out of space, and it's like an indescribable color. And when you read something like that, your imagination, can fill in what it is. But how hard is that to know what you're going to film for a movie? Because, movie is a visual medium as opposed to someone, coming up with their own imagination when reading the story.
Well, what we tried to do is I tried to apply a kind of mad science to Lovecraft's material. And the color schemes that we see in the movie are largely derived from this idea that the outer limits of the human visual spectrum are infrared on the one hand and ultraviolet on the other. And if something is an ultra-dimensional intrusion is invading our consciousness, you have to imagine it comes from somewhere, and it either comes in through ultraviolet or infrared. And if you merge those two colors, you get magenta, which is kind of a sort of neural bridge between the two. And often in the movie, we're pushing the color spectrum out towards the outer limits of what we can perceive, and simultaneously the sound design, and particularly the Colin Stetson's score, is edging into ultrasound and infrasound, into very, very high-pitched frequencies and very, very deep bass. That's, again, edging out of the auditory spectrum. I suspect color is going to be as much of a trip to listen to on headphones as it is to see on a big screen. And the overall effect is that I want to convey a sense that the audience's consciousness is literally being distorted or being dragged to its outer limits.
Being involved in Lost Soul and like the feedback for that after, like how did that affect your life, and did that help you like return to directing feature films?
the emergence of the Dr. Moreau story and what really happened on the island definitely helped aid and abet my rehabilitation in Hollywood. In that, for a long time, I'd been scapegoated for the events on the 1996 movie, which helped to protect a bunch of different folk, notably the different corporate players involved at the time. And I think 25 odd years later, a number of folk had gotten curious about some of the ideas that we'd been messing around with in Dr. Moreau, which at that point including a sort of early version of mocap and some of the VFX stuff that we were planning back then, I think was sufficiently far ahead of the game that only now in the 21st century can people think of, I guess, talking cats and dogs with machine guns and the kind of things that we were attempting back in the day.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to talk to you about, but you're a busy guy, and it's very cool to see you return to a big movie, and it's out there at festivals, and now it's coming to theaters.
Oh, man. Glad to be back.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you again. I appreciate this.
Take care, compadre.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Well, this is Barbara Magnolfi of Suspiria, and you're listening to Without Your Head.